First, they were the first in Europe to reinstate border controls. Then they began to bring unwanted illegal immigrants to Poland on a massive scale. Now, Germany is making further demands. They wish to participate in securing the external borders of the European Union. This includes a border between Poland and Belarus. Germany has no external borders of the European Union apart from its border with Switzerland. But the European external borders that we want to protect are also our external borders. These are the external borders of the Federal Republic of Germany in Europe. That is why we will participate in the protection of Europe's external borders, and we will not leave this defence solely to those who have external borders on their territory. Today, German Interior Minister Alexander Dobrindt visited the Polish-Belarusian border, accompanied by Polish Interior Minister Tomasz Siemoniak. When it comes to the safety of foreigners in Poland, the police are doing everything in their power to ensure their safety. The key point is that our common policy significantly reduces illegal migration in Europe. We have seen this impressively in recent months. Illegal migration in the European Union is declining and decreasing because we have coordinated our actions with our European partners and are assuring that attractiveness, the magnetic effect of Europe, of Germany, is reduced. The problem is that the services of individual EU member states are responsible for protecting their own borders. The European Union agency Frontex is responsible for the security and integrity of the community's external borders, and no one here intends to ask the Germans for help. The presence of German troops in Poland raises not so much doubts as outright opposition among many Poles. We simply do not want it. If Germany wants to support the defence of the Polish-Belarusian border, the external border of the European Union, then go ahead. They can pay for it. They can pay, for example, for the expansion of the border wall. I don't see a problem with that. After all, the European Union was supposed to finance it for us. That's not all. During the same meeting with journalists, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz made another rather inappropriate statement. He criticised the democratic decision of Poles to elect Karol Nawrocki as president of our country. I will not hide the fact that I was hoping for a different outcome of the presidential election in Poland. This result is also causing some concern in France. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, controlled by the December 13th coalition, did not find anything inappropriate in the German Chancellor's statement. However, the leader of the opposition, Jarosław Kaczynski, chairman of Law and Justice, expressed his opposition to this matter. This is interference in Polish affairs by a representative of a nation that should be particularly cautious in this regard and keep as far away from our affairs as possible because, ladies and gentlemen, this nation has not learned its lesson. All the more so because at the same time Germany is accelerating its armament program. The scale of these investments is not yet known, but Armin Papiger, CEO of the arms industry giant Rheinmetall, said in an interview with Deutsche Welle that his company is counting on government funding of around 70 billion euros and wants to open 10 new factories within 3 years. The talks with the government are expected to result in the production of up to 1,000 new Leopard 2 A8 tanks and around 6,000 Boxer or Puma armoured vehicles. Some of them would replace old worn-out machines, but the rest will be used to create as many as 7 new brigades. Currently, the German army has about 180,000 soldiers. The creation of 7 new brigades will increase the Bundeswehr to at least 245,000 soldiers, at least, because the German government has issued guidelines to stockpile equipment for up to 460,000 soldiers. We have received a requirement from the Bundeswehr Inspector General that the army be fully equipped for national and allied defence by 2029. We must have the equipment in storage when the soldiers arrive. We are already talking to manufacturers and signalling that something is in the works. For comparison, the Polish army currently has over 200,000 soldiers and the target is 300,000 soldiers. Germany will certainly not treat this as a development of the defence capabilities of Europe as a whole, but only as a matter of its own particular interest, given that its national economy has been in a state of permanent recession for the last several months and is heading in a very bad direction. The German government has already found the money. In the 2025 budget, it will allocate nearly 87 billion euros to armaments, which is almost 3 times the Polish figure, approximately 30 billion euros in the 2026 plan. But this is only the beginning because by 2029, Germany wants to spend as much as 160 billion euros a year on the military. On the one hand, some people are happy because it is said that Russia will be weakened in terms of competition or struggle with Europe, as Germany will constitute a great army or a very well-armed force that deters. On the other hand, however, we remember Germany well-armed during World War I and World War II, a Germany that pursued a militaristic policy, and this must always be a cause of concern from Poland's point of view. All the more so because just a few months ago, Germany demanded that other European Union countries refrain from strengthening their own national armies. After all, security was to be ensured by a joint European army. Today, however, no one mentions those plans anymore, and Germany openly says that it wants to be the strongest country in Europe, not only economically and politically, but also militarily.
A knife attack took place in Radom, Poland on Saturday night. A 35-year-old resident of the city was injured, and the attacker turned out to be a Colombian citizen. Just before the incident, the man was driving a car while under the influence of alcohol. Poles constantly hear about tragic events involving migrants in Poland and simply feel threatened. They do not know if their next walk or evening outing will end in tragedy at the hands of a migrant with a knife. Another tragic incident took place in Lubin, where two Moldovan citizens, aged 25 and 33, were arrested. The men allegedly vandalized a hotel room and participated in a brutal sexual assault on their 24-year-old compatriot. They were staying at a workers' hotel in Lubin, where a drinking party took place. Everyone consumed large amounts of alcohol. One of the men had previously been convicted in Moldova for murder, for which he served an 8-year sentence. Now he will be tried as a repeat offender. People don't know how it is possible that a person who has been legally convicted in their country of origin is staying in Poland despite this conviction. This is absolutely pathological. Until recently, we reported on such incidents only in the context of Western European countries, which have been pursuing irresponsible migration policies for years. A large proportion of these people do not integrate. They have different cultural patterns, and recent events confirm this. We have to prepare for this. And if the Migration Pact comes into force, the increase in crime will be catastrophic. Every day, an unknown number of illegal migrants cross the Polish-German border. Under public pressure, Donald Tusk's government has resumed border controls with its western neighbor, while strongly criticizing those who wanted to defend our security from the bottom up. The state is responsible for border security, not the groups of activists convened by Bąkiewicz. Discrediting those who defend the borders is an everyday occurrence for the current government. Both Poles and foreigners have the right to state protection, and any violence against a human being is evil. Only the state has a monopoly on violence. Militias of homegrown border defenders are illegal. Apparently, those in power do not like the fact that activists from the border defense movement inform Polish people every day about the actual situation at the border. The territorial defense forces and the border guard were on patrol here, and today we learned that the territorial defense forces are winding down and will no longer be guarding this border crossing. Instead of appreciating civic engagement, the coalition, civic in name only, prefers to intimidate social activists. We aren't worried. We are guarding the border around the clock. As I say, we were here, we are here, and we will be here. This is fundamental to the safety of our families and the security of our country. Border defenders receive positive feedback from the public every day. We are here on the bridge over the highway in Görlitz, and you have to see this. Practically 100% of the cars that pass by greet us, give us a thumbs up, a sign of victory. Polish people are showing great determination to ensure the safety of their loved ones and are making it clear to the authorities what they think of them. On Saturday, nearly 100 rallies were held across Poland under the slogan, "Stop Immigration." They were organized by soccer fans. For years, Poland has proudly been considered one of the safest countries in Europe. Today, the government has lost control of the western border, through which Germany pushes illegal immigrants into our country every day. In this situation, we can only count on ourselves. This is Ukraine's retaliation for Russian crimes against civilians. Over 100 drones entered enemy territory, 30 of them reaching Moscow. The Russians are in a panic, and 4 airports near Moscow have been closed. This is the second such explosive night that the Ukrainian army has given the Russian aggressors. It's a tit-for-tat tactic. The Ukrainians simply have to show that the country is defending itself and that they are responding by attacking Moscow, refineries, factories or other strategic targets deep inside the Russian Federation. Of course, the most spectacular action was the transport of drones deep into Russia. But last night was also very difficult for the residents of Kiev and other cities. 450 Russian drones, rockets, and cruise missiles struck the Ukrainian capital. People hid in the capital's metro stations, among other places, because Putin's barbarians are targeting innocent people. One of the targets of the Russian missiles was this cafe for the sixth time. Today was difficult. They hit the walls of our cafe. There was some chaos and fear, but we are repairing the damage and continuing to operate. Ukraine is defending itself and counterattacking, but Volodymyr Zelensky has not forgotten his promise to Donald Trump to strive for peace. Hence the Ukrainian president's proposal to meet this week, preferably face-to-face with Vladimir Putin. The dynamics of the negotiations must increase. Everything must be done to achieve a truce. The Russians must stop their evasiveness. Exchange of prisoners, return of children kidnapped by the Russians, cessation of killing. A meeting at the leadership level is needed, and Ukraine is ready for it. Russia has tentatively agreed to a third round of talks, but not at the leadership level. Previous talks took place in Istanbul, Turkey, although Vladimir Putin did not take up Volodymyr Zelensky's offer and did not appear in Turkey. And also in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, with the participation of American mediators led by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. For Russia, what matters is that the peace talks continue, but do not bring peace. Putin does not want this, especially now that he has the operational initiative on the front. So talks may resume, but I do not associate any breakthrough with them at all. So perhaps the language of force will appeal to Putin, as American weapons are already on their way to the front.
The Patriot transfer and the guidance that I've been given has been to move out as quickly as possible. So we're doing that, and then we're also looking at other capabilities and what those needs are and working on proposals.
The Ukrainians will thus gain heavyweight arguments, both on the front lines and during negotiations.
We will send them Patriots, which they desperately need.
The Kremlin only understands the language of force, so Ukraine will have to speak that language. Very often you have to negotiate from a position of strength, and perhaps the Ukrainians, seeing the military support that will arrive in the coming weeks, wants to take advantage of this effect. These are systems that increase the level of security for Ukrainians and enhance the defensive capabilities of the Ukrainian side. They also increase negotiating power. It is possible that another round of Russian-Ukrainian talks will begin at the end of this week. Talks are once again set to take place in the Middle East.
This is the last group of several hundred illegal migrants who have reached the shores of the Greek islands. The mechanism is well known. Smuggling gangs charge several hundred to several thousand euros for a place on a boat and a trip to the European promised land. But here, none of these promises come true. Instead of social benefits and a life at the expense of Europeans, there are camps, detention, and ultimately deportation. Greece has lost patience. No one is talking about asylum law anymore. The local parliament has just voted to suspend the procedures. The country is in a crisis situation. There are similar decisions, especially those taken by Spain, which were introduced because of the signs of an invasion. Because looking at the pace of which all this is happening, this is exactly what it looks like. However, Athens is going one step further. Faced with the impotence of EU agencies, it is sending naval ships to the Mediterranean. These are to block boats carrying illegal migrants, which are currently arriving en masse on the shores of the Greek islands. The truth is that this number is constantly growing, and the information we have indicates that there will be many more people, because it has been proven that after arriving in Crete, where most of the newcomers stay, and also in other southern parts of the island, they enter Europe, and when they enter Europe, they are treated differently. differently. Greece and Italy are increasingly resentful of Brussels, which has repeatedly promised to solve the migration problem in the Mediterranean. First, negotiations were held with the authorities in Libya and Tunisia. Then millions of euros were paid, which, according to EU bureaucrats, were supposed to go to the Libyan and Tunisian services. Where they ended up is unknown, but looking at the effects of the policy of buying security in Africa, it seems that they did not end up where they were supposed to. Greece has been left to its own devices for many years when it comes to illegal migration, and cooperation with the European Union and the actions of the United Nations are not improving the situation, which is why they have decided to take this desperate step. The government in Athens must do everything it can to ensure security of its country. Also look at the situation from the perspective of Europe as a whole. To make matters worse, the situation in Libya is becoming even more serious. Because of the continuing civil war there, the United Nations has committed to monitoring arms trafficking channels for the warring group. According to Western media, in the face of Libya's confrontational stance, the United Nations mission will most likely be terminated, which will allow the opening of smuggling routes used by illegal migrants.
It's fair and appropriate for governments to address that concern, and there are a number of ways that they can do so. We see there is real value in starting to come up with a comprehensive approach, recognizing that most migrants aren't looking to come all the way to Europe. They first migrate to a country that's next door or within their region.
The problem is that in Africa and the Middle East, no so-called safe country wants to take in its neighbours in need. This was the case, for example, with Saudi Arabia, which categorically refused to open its borders to migrants from Iraq or Jordan. This is currently the case in North Africa. Brussels assume that it will be enough to pay the warlord governments in countries engulfed in chaos for the problem to disappear on its own.